Okay, and we are back once again this midweek edition of the Spin Cycle. Andrew Southwick, R.C. Williams with you. Normally, our friend Juliana would be with us, but technical difficulties prevent such a thing from today, but we will see her hopefully on Friday. It happens. This is the world of live guerrilla broadcast journalism, if you will. RC, I know we once again we're kind of we got a lot going on, so we're tight on time here.
Yeah.
So let me share my screen. I want to bring up this first story here. Here we go. I think this is it. Where'd it go? Here we are. Okay. Let me bring up this. Let me get this going this way. Okay, this should be that. Yeah. Okay, all right. So
Here we go.
What you're going to see here is this is an interview, Wayne Allyn Root interviewing President Donald Trump, and we're talking about the midterm elections. And as you know, for whatever reason, the Republicans have not been able to push through the SAVE Act. Now, again, and I say again, and I repeat again, because people hear my take and they think I'm a liberal. No, I'm all for ID at the ballot box. I'm all for just one day to vote. I'm all for in-person voting for the vast majority. I'm all for same-day counting as well, by the way, not election season, all right, and counting months through the Yuletide. But my issue with the SAVE Act is just using the real ID as the enforcement mechanism, because it's another bottleneck into the track and trace society. And so I would like to cut that off wherever we possibly can. That's my thing against the SAVE Act. I don't think that's unreasonable. That doesn't mean I'm not for the gist of it. But nonetheless, another thing that I'm not for, RC, and maybe I don't know if you would agree or not, you can tell me, but is the unilateral actions of the increasing unilateral governing from the executive office via executive order. We're really getting to where we, whatever, Democrat or Republican, we mount up the executive orders, and that's pretty much the only legislation that happens. The spending bills, of course, we've talked about those, and then and then we just swing back and forth. So anyway, here is President Trump talking with Wayne Allyn Root, and Wayne Allyn Root is saying, hey, listen, you can declare an emergency and just force the SAVE Act through. Check this out.
So let me put an idea in your head, okay? Because it's so hard to get the Senate to do anything. Now they're on recess. They don't get anything done if they never get the Save America Act done. You have the right to declare a national security emergency for elections. And the Supreme Court ruled in 1983 under Reagan that INS versus Chadha, that if you declare a national security emergency as the president of the United States, they can't challenge it. It can only be overturned by a 2/3 vote of both houses of Congress. So if you do this in the next month, we will get photo ID, proof of citizenship, and a limit to mail-in ballots. And
Let me just say that stranger things have happened. Okay, I'll leave it at that.
All right, so then he says at the end, President Trump responds saying, stranger things have happened. RC, is this something we should be concerned about? Now, also, I will say this. We know President Trump says a lot of things, and then, he'll brag about stuff. But, is this a real thing? Or is this something we should be concerned about? Is this something that we should do? I don't know. What's the scoop on this?
Yeah, I think what's scarier for me, Andrew, at the top is this might makes right. Like we're in this cycle where might makes right. This is the same thing that got Lincoln into trouble, while he is largely considered the savior of those who were enslaved at the time. That was a means to an end for him. But what really got him in trouble was the suspending of habeas corpus. And his logic was might makes right if the circumstances dictate it. So hang on to that one for a second. The concern that you had before we ran this is also valid. How long do we govern by executive order, right? One, it throws the balance of power out of whack, which is a whole nother subject, but also it has no teeth. So whatever you do here can just easily be reversed or dropped. Part three is I'm not entirely certain that declaring an emergency deals with anything beyond federal level elections anyway. right? Because states set their own standards for their state, county, local elections. This would, I guess, only apply to federal elections because it stands right now, municipalities can allow illegals to vote, right? They have that right.
RC, let me ask you this:
Yeah.
if we're only going to apply to federal elections, would that require then like split ballots? For example, one ballot that's federal, one ballot that's state. Because right now, many states it's all on the same ballot. Your
It's
state
all on the
and
same
federal.
ballot.
So you would have to split those up in order to enforce this. If an emergency power declaration for the SAVE Act parameters is gonna happen, you'd have to split those up because otherwise you'd be able to vote on everything, state and federal.
Yeah, I'm not even sure how you would do that in time, Andrew, because would that require a reprint? Then who do the states use for the printing of their ballots? Are they just going to try to give people instructions as they go along? Like, I'm not entirely sure how that would work. And so it creates its own bailiwick, right? And there's such a short window between now and November. I think the other thing that's concerning for me is when you invoke emergency powers or you declare a state of emergency. I mean, we're still dealing with some state of emergency declarations, right? And they hang over us because what they do is that they suspend your constitutional rights. We're back to the double-edged sword conversation again. Like, do I want voter ID? Absolutely. Do I want it to be digital? No, because that opens up a whole nother can of worms. And that's one of the Achilles heels of what they want to do with the SAVE Act. But my concern is that when you start doing this, those emergency orders or those declarations don't seem to get lifted. This is one of the problems with COVID. And before you know it, you think you've got rights, and one day you go out and they're like, what are you talking about? That's already been suspended. Like you don't have them right now because, like, when you suspend habeas corpus, you can jail people who are journalists or not journalists for saying something that you don't like. Andrew, I think it sets a dangerous precedent, and people do need to keep in mind that, look, there's going to be an end to this, right? On Inauguration Day 2029, things are going to change. And if they change a way that you don't like, guess what? All of that stuff is going to be turned and weaponized against you. So there's a practical way to get this done. The fact that the legislature can't get it done is an issue that needs to be resolved, and you can force them or poke at them to get it done. But if you use some of these methods, in some instances, there's no going back. And I think with Wayne, there's a frustration there to the point where he'll dig for whatever answer makes him feel better and then makes his audience feel better. I don't think that's why we do Spin Cycle. That's why we do Culture Crossroads. Our job isn't to make you feel better. Our job is to help you understand what's going on and what the potential pitfalls or positives of it are.
Yeah. And, speaking of holding people accountable, speaking of things being weaponized against you, we had I would say, to put a button on that, I do think that President Trump's, let me put it this way, stranger things have happened. It's not an outright, yeah, I'm going to do it. It might have been that thing giving Wayne Allen Root kind of what he wanted and then moving on. But it is, it is worth noting because, again, if you're not going to rule something out as the president of the United States, that means you are also, there's a world where that exists, and we just need to be, ready for what comes.
Yeah.
Speaking of not holding things accountable and the weird ways Washington works, we have seen now these new texts from Dr. Fauci about COVID vaccines and pregnancy. And now this is from CNN. So CNN is trying to cover Fauci's tail here and helping him out. But nonetheless, he writes here, in an exchange on January 25th, 2021, Dr. Vivek Murthy, who was then a member of President Joe Biden's advisory board, asked about potential risk to those who are pregnant if Fauci knew of any data, theoretical reason why vaccinating early versus late would be preferred. Fauci responded, there's no reason to believe that early versus later would matter. He then added, since many people have significant cytokine storm, so that means they knew about that. And the cytokine storm was like the COVID pneumonia, as I understand it. It was that's what, and people were getting on the ventilators now, on that whole standard of care that many believe was really the culprit for a lot of people dying in hospital. and the fever after the second dose. This theoretically could be associated then with miscarriage in the first trimester. So this is what is blowing up. Then Dr. Rochelle Walensky, who was the director of the CDC at the time, definitely a good point, especially after dose 2. So we have now Dr. Fauci knowing that there is a risk to pregnant women, there is a risk to unborn children from this treatment. I'm going to use the words carefully because I'm hoping this will stay up online. We also have the acknowledgement of the cytokine storm, right? And so the standard of care, again, go home, wait till you can't breathe, come back in, we'll put you on a ventilator, then we'll give you remdesivir. And, the outcome of that usually was not good. So then, of course, you have Fauci the other week pleading the fifth 111 times, I believe it was 111 times. Wouldn't even answer what color the sky was from Josh Hawley, which I realized was a lot of theater. But if you have been pardoned, and that pardon Joe Biden gave Fauci, it was stretched all the way back to 2014.
Mm-hmm.
If you've been pardoned and you've accepted a pardon, that means you're accepting some guilt there. You're accepting some incriminating truth. So if you already have that pardon, why wouldn't you go ahead and say what you need to say to let the truth be told, unless there are new truths, maybe outside of that window? I have no idea. Obviously, the states still have the ability to prosecute Fauci. But what this means is then when Fauci is on CNN and he's on MSNBC and all the rest and the Sunday shows saying, hey, get it and get it now, you won't get it, it's safe for everybody, that he was lying, absolutely lying. And in the process of that lie, risk the lives of countless unborn children, risk the lives and health of countless pregnant women, and on and on and on. That is reckless to the point of reckless to the point of a crime against humanity, because you would have known that already, and to know about the cytokine storm and not be forthcoming about that either. There is no way. Just that phrase you're seeing there in the second paragraph on the screen, there's no way you can know that and then go out and say safe and effective. There's no way.
No, I'm not surprised, Andrew. Like none of the, and that's sad to say that. Like I say that, you can probably see on my face. It's sad now, something that we already knew, and that to some degree had already been put out there that people either ignored or got buried, comes around again. But let me give you the best leading market indicator of the good doctor and how you knew that he was off his rocker. When cornered years back, he lashed out and said the science is settled. Now, at the time he said that, I said, dude, hang on a second. The science can never be settled. That's the entire point of science, right? What you're telling me is you don't want to talk about it because there's a whole bunch of stuff going on that you don't want people to know. And now that we have access to the records, we can clearly see that was the case. And for the life of me, have family members who are doctors, great respect for doctors who practice in an ethical and meaningful way and really want to help people to get healthy. But amongst so many in that trade, the Messiah complexes are off the charts. And when that goes unchecked, you end up with a Walensky and a Fauci and a Deborah Birx. And they think that they're God. And they convince people that they are, right? The whole white coat experiment. If you guys haven't looked that up, you should go look that one up, right? As to how people deal with authority. They sold you a bill of goods. And of all the people I could hold accountable, because you can hold them all accountable, I go back to something that I think you said last week, Andrew. This happened in 2020. I'm going to hold the people who were in charge who let this thing happen beyond the, okay, you didn't know what was going on. At some point, you did know what was going on. You knew who you were dealing with. You knew that people were dying unnecessarily. Why didn't you do something about it? Right? So there's a lot of people to hold accountable from that. And now we're just seeing more of the spill out from that. And Dr. David Martin has done an incredible job trying to help us understand what's coming. We're seeing the first wave of the damage from that. And for the sake of this staying up and not getting censored, I won't go into too much detail. People can figure it out for themselves when I talk about the waves of illness that have come and that we can expect second and third waves from that are going to be absolutely devastating.
And when you have President Trump nominating for a new CDC director. The another salesman for the concoction, and in fact, the one Dr. Erica Schwartz, who was the one who persecuted our military servicemen and women who did not want to participate in it. You would think you would have learned a lesson from 2022 now, 6 years, but instead we're nominating and installing the people who ran this terrorist psyop in the first place. I'm sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
Andrew, this goes back to something that we have said since we started the spin cycle. When leadership runs under the guise of, look, it may not be moral and it may not even be ethical, but as long as it's legal, it's okay. People will take you literally. And now we get into this phase where it's like everything's for sale. Whoever has the best sales pitch or the most money with the best agenda can get pretty much whatever they want. My follow-up question is going to be, okay, I have a pretty good idea of what an ambassadorship costs, right? What you have to pay, what dowry do you have to pay if you want to be an ambassador with the administration? Now I'm curious as to what a nomination to something like the CDC, what the price is for that, because there's got to be a price on it. It's just like there's a price for an endorsement. I want to know what that price is so I can figure out how the heck we got these people in the first place. But it's pretty sad that the best we can do at the CDC is someone who did all those things. That's pretty telling.
All right, last story for the day, and then I'm pretty sure you got to jump here in a couple of minutes, but we'll get this one going. I think this is important. The Minnesota, let me make that a little bigger for you. Minnesota Republican primary just took place yesterday, and Lisa DeMuth defeated the Trump-endorsed MyPillow founder Mike Lindell for the GOP nomination to run for governor in Minnesota. The question here, we're still waiting for some of the exit polling, and I am looking for that right now. I don't know that I would like to dig a little bit into some of the exit polling, and hopefully we'll have this for a future report, maybe in a day or two, but as to see what the voters were voting for, because I think this could be a clarifying moment for the GOP, and let the GOP know, hey, here's what your voters actually want. Because for a Trump endorsement to lose at that prominent of a position, I think that's a big deal. I think that says more than maybe what we're hearing in the fallout. So I'd be really curious to know some of the granular details. Those haven't come out yet. As soon as they do, we'll bring some to you. But from right now, from what we can see, do you expect this? Let's kind of look predictively. RC, do you expect this to be more a rejection of our current trajectory in America as led by effectively DC and yes, the Trump administration? Or is this more of a localized, no, we just prefer this candidate better, DeMuth? Or perhaps, in the last weeks, Mike Lindell also came out effectively in favor of amnesty, and that could have sunk his campaign as well. And it might be as simple as that. Those are the only factors I can think of right now that have any kind of backing or verifiability. And again, I'm looking for more of the exit polling as it comes out. But what's your take right now as to what you would expect to hear coming out of Minnesota in the next couple of days as to why DeMuth defeated Mike Lindell?
Yeah, a couple of moving parts here, Andrew. And so I think and Damon Roberts from Live from Studio 6B did a great job with this last night. He said, look, it's Minnesota. Honestly, it doesn't matter who the Republican nominee is. Amy Klobuchar is going to destroy him by probably 20 percentage points. And you can just take it. Here it comes again, right? As the old joke goes. That said, so knowing the people in the race, knowing Mike Lindell and Kendall Qualls, well, if you look at the actual percentage breakdown, because the Minnesota Republicans couldn't get it together, I believe that the state party endorsed Kendall Qualls for governor, and then President Trump endorsed Mike Lindell. If you look at that breakdown, Lindell got 32% and Kendall Qualls got 21%. You can help me with my math here, but I believe that would have come out to 53%.
Yeah. Which
would have beaten Lisa DeMuth. So here's what ends up happening. You basically split the vote because they couldn't coalesce on who should run. Right. And so what do you have? You have a vote split where when you look at the totals, if one of them was out of the race, the one who was still in probably wins, Lisa's a good choice because I think she's the Speaker of the House or the President of the Senate in Minnesota. So she's obviously a safe choice. And that's what people revert to when there's chaos. They just go with the safe and stable choice that they know. This is a failure on multiple levels. One, the state party is not in alignment with the RNC, obviously, right? Because one gets endorsed and the other doesn't. Two, the two candidates can't come together and figure something out with the understanding that, hey, one of us can do this. Maybe we should try to figure out how we can make this work. So that doesn't happen. And then you end up with this three-way split where somebody else ends up winning. So I don't know whether or not Mike Lindell talking about amnesty really did much, and he did it out of context, which was a bad move. But I don't know that that was necessarily the determining factor. I think when you have a vote split like this, where candidates who have resources and are known entities and are pretty popular get together, people are going to dig in, and people take their direction from the party. Some do. Some take it from President Trump and his endorsements. Some take it from the media. I just think you saw all those things come together.
Let me ask you this. Take what we see in Michigan, the party split, the vote split. Can we project that onto the state of Florida? Do we have a similar split in Florida with Byron Donalds, the Trump endorsed perceived front runner, in many cases the assumed nominee, but you do have other candidates, and unfortunately, I wonder if there's too much of a plurality for any of those other candidates to defeat Byron Donalds. But are we looking at a similar thing here, where is the state party as misaligned with Trump as the Minnesota party is, or is Florida a different animal altogether?
Florida's a different animal. Everybody coalesced, like the RPOF and the party and those who provide money to it coalesced around Byron Donalds in record time. I think that even if the others, and look, personal opinions aside, I think even if the others all coalesced and decided one of them was the way to go, they still wouldn't get enough. There is, at this point, too much money, too much endorsement, too much muscle behind Byron Donalds in that primary. And there's a bigger plan. Some of this we've talked about on Culture Crossroads. We've written about this with Sherlock Exposes, where there is a bigger plan for Byron Donalds that involves the White House in the future. And in order for that to work, he's got to be governor of Florida. So that's why the money and the power coalesced as quickly. And people will tell you that I'm crazy, or that we're crazy, and that's not actually happening. But if you play this out, you will very clearly see that that's the case, and it had been decided. So I think it's a different animal, Andrew, because the state party, the RNC, the White House all came into lockstep. What I think is interesting is that President Trump felt the need to come out 3 times to reaffirm his endorsement of Byron Donalds. That tells you that something is up, but I don't think it's enough of something necessarily to knock him out.
Do you think that Byron Donalds is a replacement for Ron DeSantis, for example, because Ron DeSantis didn't entirely play ball, because Ron DeSantis primaried President Trump? Maybe that was something they were hoping DeSantis could step into, but since he didn't play ball, and we know that he had a falling out with Susie Wiles as well, who runs a lot of Trump's administration, that they still want the Florida governor, but just not that one.
Yeah, I mean, look, Byron's going to be in lockstep, right? Until he's not. Now, I think he'll stay there because there are bigger plans for him. You know, we've talked on the show before about our feelings about Governor DeSantis and what he did and didn't do. We actually got grassroots leaders together back in 2021 because DeSantis's office asked us to pull them together for a listening session, and they spent 3 hours with us. They gave us a slew of questions. We gave Governor DeSantis some really good initiatives, which many of them he enacted to his credit. But the last question was ambiguous, and it was, if Governor DeSantis has an opportunity to run for president in 2024, should he? And 13 out of 13 doctors surveyed said absolutely not. Right? If he stays governor, finishes his term, he will cakewalk to the White House in 2028. And so here you go, right? Where you've got this scenario. Is he being penalized? Yeah, whatever. I think, though, that with time, and it may not be 28, it may be 2032, I think that passes. And I think he does get another shot. So does it hurt him in the short term? Yeah, maybe. But there were financial incentives for him to run in 2024, which if you want our deep dive study on that, you can email us and we'll share it with you. So he kind of had to. Yeah, I think there's maybe some backlash from him, but look, Wiles ain't going to be around forever. President Trump ain't going to be around forever. Times are going to change. And so it will be interesting to see, though, as time goes on with what I just said, if the plan is for Byron to be in the White House in 2032 and Governor DeSantis plans to run in 2032, it should be a very interesting Republican primary.
Oh, my goodness. Well, the stories just keep coming, and we are going to we're going to stay on top of them and continue to strive to bring you, at least on this program, here's the basic stuff. You can do with it what you want, come to your own conclusion, but cut through the noise, cut through the narrative, and here's what's happening. All right, RC, let everybody know where they can find us.
Awesome. So if you're looking for Culture Crossroads on YouTube, it is Culture Crossroads 316. You will see all the great work we do with the Spin Cycle, Culture Crossroads, and Andrew Southwick's incredible monologues, which we still encourage him every day to break those up so you can see those because they're absolutely incredible. Culture Crossroads 316 on YouTube. For Watchman Action, all things Watchman Action are at watchmanaction.org. All of our socials are Watchman Action, and you can watch the Spin Cycle weeknights, 9:30 Eastern, on the Watchman Action Network. That is Bet Cable Channel 40 and streaming all over the place just for you.
All right. That's going to do it for today's Spin Cycle. I'm Andrew Southwick. He's RC Williams. We will see you next time. Thanks for checking us out.